Morning. We learn a lot Gemara. Today's daf is daf pei. We learned the Mishnah yesterday. The Mishnah, just to quickly recap, the Mishnah talks about, just like previously we had, if the limbs of a carbon chatas got mixed up with the limbs of another carbon, how do you deal with it? Because in a carbon oil, for example, the oil entirely has to get burnt and the chatas is only parts of it. What do you do with the rest? So now we had a discussion in the Mishnah, the blood of an animal that was proper carbon got mixed up with the blood of an animal that was a balmum. What do? Is the Chachamim said you pour it out because the blood of balmum you cannot place on the mizbeach, you can't sprinkle on the mizbeach, and the Rabbi Elazar says no. He says that if you already poured some of the blood, we'll assume that blood that you poured before or you sprinkled before already was the puzzle one. You can go ahead and continue bringing the rest of them. And the Chacham disagree. They say that even if you brought them all, there's only one left, you don't say, oh, the Rai, probably that's where the puzzle is, let me sprinkle the last one. We don't say that at all. Okay, and then we had the whole discussion is something that, you have to sprinkle on the bottom, and that got mixed up with something you sprinkle on the top. Again, what do you do? So Rabbi Elazar says that you sprinkle it on the top, and then you imagine that the blood that belongs on the bottom, and you now sprinkle on the top as if it's water. Royin. You imagine that it's water, and therefore it's not a problem. So look at this: if you have oil that got mixed up with chatas has to be or shlami, whatever. All kabbalas have to sprinkle the bottom except the carbon chatas. So the chatas got mixed up with any other carbon. So according to Blazer, you sprinkle on the top because you don't know where it is. You sprinkle on the top, and you have in mind that whatever other carbon is there, that blood is really only water. So it doesn't in any way disqualify the other carbon, and it's all good. And the Chachamim don't believe in the concept of rain, and they say you pour the whole thing out. They made a whole machlek of Lezer B'Yeshua that if you have a carbon that you have to sprinkle shtayim shein arba, like a carbon shlamim, and then you have a carbon b'choir, which is only sprinkle one, and what do? So should you be machmer, according to Rabbi Lezer, you do all four. And Rabbi Yeshua accuses him of baltaisiv. Rabbi Elazar is not deterred by that because he says any blood that played, one corner will be the right one, and the rest it's like water. And Rabbi Yeshua says it's better to be shaval taisa. You just do one. So definitely you didn't add because the pchay you shouldn't have more than one. It shouldn't be baltaisiv, and he doesn't believe in the svara of royin. And you better for the other one you should do four. But if you only did one, it's good enough. And better do shaval taisa. So now we're up to the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Elazar says Rabbi Elazar. This is a comment we had before, and we're going to say it again on this piece here. Because before we talked about avorim getting mixed up, now we're talking about blood getting mixed up. Amar Rabbi Elazar, lo yichsher Rabbi Eliezer ela shnayim shnayim. Going forward, when does Rabbi Elazar say that you can go ahead and you continue to sprinkle the blood? Only if you happen to have two other karbanos, three things of blood to sprinkle. Since one of them definitely. One of those cups definitely, let's say, is 100% kosher, is 100%, should be nizik on the mizbeach, then it drags along that the other one, which was supik, is good enough. But if you only have one cup left, how do you know that maybe the psul is in that one cup, and therefore you cannot proceed? Mostly with Rav Dimi asked the question we had before as well. The Chachamim says the Chacham argue, and they say, even if you brought them all up, you do all the damas bech, and all you have left is one cup. So l'chayda achri rabim, will say the lahatas will say definitely that the puzzle of blood was already, from the psulim was already up there somewhere, and there's only one cup left. Surely, it should be all right. And nevertheless, we don't do that. Yishalama, they say you should pour it out. But you just said that according to Rabbi Elazar, he also agrees there's only one cup left. You pour it out. It's only time Rabbi Elazar says that you continue is if you have two cups, and one is definitely kosher, so it drags along the other one. I'll explain to you my echad. You know what echad means? Zug echad, one set. It's exactly the same principle that we learned before. Yesterday, when we learned about avodim a few years ago, about avodim getting mixed up. So why do you have to repeat the same principle again? We need it. The itma if we only know over here in the case of the avodim getting mixed up, the avodim get mixed up after you already sprayed the blood. You did all the matirim correctly. Now suddenly the pieces got mixed up from a chatos and an oila. What do you do? So what do you do? But so therefore we would say that since you're already nischaper, which is after time, so therefore we have this machlekes. You already did the kapara. You already did the kapara. So therefore, you go ahead and you put it up there, and you say the Yevodim that there's two left. You put them up there on top, and we'll assume that the one that you put up first was probably the possible one. Everything else is all right. Aval baha. In this case, we were talking about the zik of the dam itself. You haven't yet completed the kapara. Aim a moed made the moed. We should be machmir and tell them not to proceed because you need your kapara. It's not that it's a shvacha kapara. Maybe what you're about to sprinkle now is the apostle blood. If only in the case of blood, I would say, but how come only here? But you say that we want you to pour the blood out, don't proceed. But over there, maybe the moed, but the moed you already did your kapara, therefore you need it. Says the Gemara, if I'm in the Mishnah, it's loichis, you have a jug, shenaflu letoicha mayim koshu. We're talking about that you have a jug where you have the mayim chaim, you have the spring water, and then you added a little efer hapara. So now you're going to use this to sprinkle on people who are tummy. But what happened was a little bit of ordinary tap water got mixed in. Tap water is possible because you need mayim chaim. So what do? So tzleichi shenaflu letoicha mayim koshu fell in there, a drop of water. Na mehatoida is bottled like everything else. But midrabban, we're machmer, especially by mechatas, where machmer we want is this going to be metayer people from tumas hameis? We want it to be proper. Or metayer kelim. Is Rabbi Lezer said, this is what you do. This is the eitzah, and the Gemara will explain Rabbi Lezer's shit in a minute. Yaze shte hazois, sprinkle it twice on a talmidic person or a talmidic kelim. Sprinkle it twice. And if you sprinkle it twice, then you definitely have sprinkled a little bit of the efer as well, of the mayim chaim with efer upon it. And the Chacham says it's not good enough. Poison. You can no longer use this water. Now we're trying to understand. We understand the shit of the Rabbanon. First of all, Savri, they hold yesh bila. Yeah, the question is when you have two liquids together, do we say that let's say a little bit of Isser went into Heter? Do we say the Isser is still all together? We just don't know where it is. Or that's called Ein Bila. They don't really mix properly. Or there's a Yesh Bila. Yesh Bila means that mix so well that every single spoonful of that water has in it side the Mayim Chayim and side the tap water. Because Yesh Bila. So we can understand why the Chacham say you cannot use this water. They hold Yesh Bila, right? So that everywhere there's mixed the puzzle of water. But they also hold Hazah Tzrichin Shir. We don't know exactly what it is, but Hazah needs some kind of a shir of Mayim Chaim. And we know that when you spray, by the way, you sprinkle on the person, you sprinkle whatever it is, the Ein Mitzvah from Hazah is each Hazah you put on each Hazah is independent of the previous Hazah. Yeah, and you spring your finger. So every Hazah, you might be 10 Hazahs. Could be in every Hazah the amount of puzzle of water that's in there reduces the amount of the Mayim Chaim that you didn't have the correct shear of Mayim Chaim to mitahir the person. So the Chacham hold that Yesh Bila, which in this case is a problem because you have puzzle of water everywhere, and they hold you need a shear. So the tap water takes away from that shear. You might not have a shear.
Said the kosher of mine was used up in the first mix when it was bottled still in the mix that you had in the cup.
This is the Rabbanon. This holding is the Rabbanon because we're being very machmir.
When you had the 100 rings of Avodah Zarah,
only by Mechatos we are very machmir. By Paradum we're very very machmir because we wanted to make sure they matai the person 100%. We're extraordinary machmir. But we understand the shita. Rabbi Lezer, the idea of two sprinkles doesn't make sense. One we can understand, but what Manushach? Maikas, what does he hold? Ikasavar ain't bila. If he holds a what? That there's no mixing, that means a what? That every time you spray, could be that all you had was the tap water, because ain't bila, and each one's like in a separate compartment. Is kimazer mahava. So what if you did it twice? Maybe in both instances, what you sprayed was the tap water, the puzzle of water, not the Mayim Chaim. Novas, Kasava Yesh Bila. Obviously, he holds Yesh Bila, which means definitely you have in that water Meichatas as well. You have Mayim Chaim there as well, definitely. Novas. So what's the idea of two? Ikasava Ein Hazah Tzich. If you hold, you don't need a share. That means when you did your Hazah, as long as there's a drop of Mayim Chaim there, which there is, because it's Yesh Bila, it's all mixed together, then that's good enough. There's no share, even a mashu is enough. So we need to spray twice full. The first time you matai the person. Navas, Kasavar Hazah Tzich Shir. Obviously, he holds that Hazah needs a shir, and therefore one Hazah maybe he didn't have a shir of Mayim Chaim. No, So how does two hazos help? Now, Ikasava ain mistarfel. If he holds that you don't combine the two to say, oh, there's a little bit of mayim chaim, a little bit of mayim chaim here, and it doesn't matter that together they would have added up to the shir, but we don't combine. Is kimazish te'azos mahave. Then again, if you spray 2 times, what happens? How do you know if was it help? If the first time there wasn't the shear, nor was it the second time, nor the third time. You don't know. But inami mitzvah from lazois, and so you can tell me what you know. What it's mitzvah of lazois, and therefore you need 2 times. So the 2 together, you have the shear of mayim chaim. Is mi yema demola shear? But how do you know that that the 2 times the aggregate of the mayim chaim is the shear? Maybe in each of these hazos happen to be more the possible water than the mayim chaim, and even though you did twice, even though you mitzvah them, it's still not enough. So what's going on? We're trying to understand Rabbi Lezer. We'll have a few answers. First, Reish Lakish. Says the Gemara, Amar Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish, Gemara going to slug up straight away. Reish Lakish says, this is Rabbi Lezer Shita. La'elami holds yesh bila. Rabbi Lezer holds there is bila. Yep, they do mix well. The Hazar tzricha shir. He holds you need a shir. Okay, so you have bila as well, so you have in every drop you have of their mayim chaim. But you need a shir. No loss. So we asked the question: if you need a shear, monoshech, if the nam is starif, how do you know you hit the shear? And if the arm is starif, but you still, how do you know? Maybe you had the more mayim pasla than the mayim chaim. You know we're talking about a case here. There's exactly a shear of hazah of good water, and a shear of hazah of pasla water. So if you only did it once, maybe you don't have the shear of what do you call it? Of the kosher water, the mayim chaim. But if you did it in 2 zrikas, between the 2 of them, you used up all the water, and we're mitzarif. So definitely, you did the full shear of mayim chaim. That's the word here. A unique case. That's Reish Lakish. So Reish Lakish held this bila, and you need a shear, and they're mitzarif. So the Gemara, Rava says no. Rabbi says, or Rabbi says, La'ilam, yesh bilam. That really there is that this is what Rabbi Lezer holds. He holds yesh bila, that he holds there's bila. However, bahazah ain't sichashir. There is bila, because every drop you have mayim chaim, and you don't need a shir. No, so then the first hazah is good enough. What do you need a second one for? Merely a knas. What's the knas? You shouldn't gain. If you're going to tell people that if you have ordinary tap water mixed in there, as long as you have a little bit of mayim chaim, good enough. So, they'll add more and more water, so have more mechatas. Because maybe it's hard to get mayim chaim, or they don't have enough mayim chaim. They'll just keep on adding tap water. So we don't want people to do that.
Have a whole process with guys who grew up on that.
Yeah, that's
Take them with the metal, with the stone.
Yeah, on top of a very, very wide animal. Exactly. So therefore, if you give them a license to just put more tap water in there, that's what they're going to do. That's a knas. So according to Rav, yesh bila, and you don't need a shear. You don't need a shear. So therefore, you don't need to mistal of anything because you don't need a shear. The moment you say you don't need a shear, you no longer have to talk about combining the 2. And it's only a knas rabban. However, Rav Ashi comes along, and Rav Ashi says, no, I disagree. I hold ain bila. I hold that ain bila, that they don't mix well. That means that the tap water is separate from the mechatas. And it's ain bila.
If you say ain bila, can you separate the 2?
How? You don't know where it is. Exactly.
So how can you say ain bila? What?
He said yes. He said that there's no bila, and you don't need a shear. And why do you need 2 azaz? Why you need 2 azaz is because he holds ein bila. Could be that in the first hazah there was no mayim chaim. Only all you had was the what do you call it? The other one. But on the other hand, if you spray twice, definitely is a little bit. You don't need a shear, so definitely there was a little bit of the mechatas there as well. Why? Because he learns he takes the Bryce literally where it says kosher humayim. Till now we were learning kosher humayim can mean we don't keep kosher didn't mean a drop. It meant as much as there is. That's why the Shlokish said there was equal amounts. It wasn't a kosher. The Mafia takes it literally. Kosher means it was a mashihu of water. So if you did one hazah, you would say, "Oh, 1 second, maybe that one hazah was that punktat mashihu of water, because punktat mashihu of water." But if you did two hazahs, then definitely you used up already the mashihu of tap water. It must be chatas. But he holds ein bila, because otherwise the yesh bila, the first hazah is good enough. He doesn't believe in knas, so it must be ein bila. And we're worried that maybe okay. Says the Gemara. First question on the Shlakish. Rebbe said. Rebbe clearly says according to Rabbi Lezer, who says that you need two hazahs. Hazah koshu metahedes. That I bought the hazah koshu can already do metar. Hazah ain't sich a shear. The Shlakish said that he holds that you need a shear. That's why you need two cups, because each cup had, we had a cup of tap water and a cup of mayim chayim, and therefore you needed two. He said no. Rebbe says, according to Rabbi Lezer, Hazah does not need shear. Number one. And number two, Hazah, even if you mix together, machzah kosher and machzah posel, you put the water, tap water together, disqualified water together with spring water, even though they're mixed, it's still kosher. But the bottom line is, the Shlokish said that he holds that you need a shear. Clearly, you don't need a shear. So we repudiate the Shlokish. Now, we're going to ask questions on Ravashi. Tanya, you will learn clearly. He says, even though it's similar to our mission, what happens? You have a carbon chatas where you have to sprinkle the blood lemaila. Got mixed up with carbonas, which are all the rest of carbonas. That we have to sprinkle where on the bottom. So let's say dam chatas with dam oila. Oila is on the bottom, and dam chatas is on top. And we always do the top first before you do the bottom. If you have two carbonas, you should spray the top first. As we'll learn later. So the Gemara is a. You told him, Rabbi Lezer says, "What do you do? Yitin lemaila, spray all the blood lemaila, spray the blood lemaila first, and v'hatachtoinim ololoi, and then you spray lemata, and the tachtoinim ololoi." And it sounds like, what does that mean, tachtoinim ololoi? That you yaitz everything. You yaitz the chatas above the line. And you're supposed to do the shiraim that your koleto come down. When you spray in the bottom, the shiraim is going down to the side. Plus, your yaitzi, your carbon oil on the bottom. That's what it sounds like. Now, let's understand. The Ravashi understood ain bila, not like Robert says that yesh bila that's mixed together, it's only a knas. You said ain bila, they stay separate, they stay apart. So how do you know that what you sprayed on top was not the blood of carbon oil? You said that you yaitzi the top, carbon chatas. Why? Maybe the blood is sprayed on top. If you hold yesh bila, so definitely there was blood mixed in of the carbon chatas there. Okay, but you told me ain bila. Am I all Why deal with kayav maybe what you did lemaila, the chuta sikra was all the blood of the carbon oil. And if you hold ain bila, the only way to explain it is that yesh bila, and therefore it was blood of oil there as well. Said Imar Hachamai skin. You know what we're talking about here? Kegoin the ika rube el yonim. There was more blood of the chatas than there was blood of the oil. The kayav lemaila share tachtoni va'oid, and what you sprayed above the line was the whatever the amount was. Let's say a pint. One was a pint and one was a pint and a quarter. So if you sprayed more than a pint on top, and the oil, let's say, was a pint and the chatas was a pint and a bit. If you sprayed on top a bit more than a pint, you definitely had some blood of a chatas there. You never had some blood of chatas there. So even though ain't bila, because all there was 1 pint of oil blood. So even if the entire oil blood went on top, but there was more than a pint that you sprayed there. What was that extra? Must have been from the carbon chatas. So that's what we're talking about here. So you might ask a question. So you're agreeing that it's possible that all the blood of the oil went on top. So how can it say that when you spray in the bottom oil loy? What do you mean oil loy? Okay, maybe you ate it for the carbon chatas, but how you ate for the oil? Maybe all the blood of the oil was on top. How taktoinim oil like Tani? Says, well, you're right. The shame shirayim, not oil for the oil. As far as the oil is concerned, we don't know if you're in his chap or not. We're going to say you weren't. Oil means you yaitz 100% your karma chatas, because a little bit of the dam definitely was karma chatas on top. And then even if you didn't spray any of the blood, and there was still a bit more left over, because we said a pint and a quarter, you did a pint a little bit more, and then definitely have some chatas blood left over, and it went on the bottom. So you did your shiraim. Perfect. Okay, no die. Toshma coming here, similar Bryce, same question. Let's say he placed it on the bottom. This kohen is Chatam Chacham, so he did the wrong thing. He didn't ask anybody, and he, instead of going on top, he's supposed to do whatever blood on top always goes first. He decided to spray because there's an oil chatzas. He decided to spray the bottom first. He thought an oil is more chashuv. He decided to spray the bottom here. Yeah, Below Nimlach, his Rabbi says, what do you do? He says, go ahead and then spray. You put a little bit on top, but so plenty of blood left. Do it on top. And you yaitz tachtoinim as well. So the question is, if you hold ein bila, there's no. How can you go to the top? Maybe you already used up the chat, or maybe what the blood you're going to do on top is going to be the oil blood. Ein bila. They don't say that all mixed together. Well, I said again, same thing. That there was more blood of chatas than there was blood of the oil, and therefore, when you go on top, you make sure you spray more blood than what the amount of the oil blood originally was. So definitely, you had to use chatas blood. Same question with tachtoinim all like Tani. The same shirayim. Not for the oil, because maybe all the blood of the oil went on top, but for shirayim. Talk coming here. Third one. If you place it on top. And he didn't ask. Everyone agrees that what? No, the Rabbana would have said, just pour. If they would have asked the Chachamim, Rabbi says spray the top, and Rabbi Chachamim said Yishpalama, right? We said before, pour it down. Okay, so the Rabbana say, okay, if you already did the top. The Rabban will say, go ahead and eat the lamata, because they say yesh bila, and you already did some of the chatas blood on top. So therefore, now you have to do what do you call it? The shiraim, the shiraim to go on the bottom, and you can do the whole thing. The elu ola. Then it says the elu ololoi. Sounds like you yates to the oil on top, and you yates to the oil on the bottom. You yates the chatas on top, and the same question. According to Rabbi, if you hold ein bila, the Chacham definitely hold yesh bila. So Chacham hold definitely. If you did it already, you were yaitzer. But according to Rabbi Lezer, same question before. If ein bila the way you Rav Ashi learned, then how do you know? What do you mean? Go and put on top. Maybe all you have left is the blood of the oil. Same answer again. You had more blood of the chatas than the oil, and you put there a little bit more than whatever the original oil was. But it says elu the elu olak tani. It says elu the elu ololoi. Clearly, it says here that you were yaitze. Till now, you were saying the bottom was the shiraim. Just clearly, you were yaitze your oil and your chatas. Says the talking about a meek tani elu the elu moedim. Does it say we're talking here according to Chachamim as well? Does it say that the Rabbi Lezer Chacham both are moedim that you yaitze both? No, elu the elu oloi. Tani say for us and the Rabbanan. That goes according to the Rabbanan. Yesh bila. The only one when it says at the end, if you didn't listen and you did already on top, might as well go to the bottom. Is that's only according to the Rabbanon who say that yesh bila. Exactly. So you're ready. Yeah. So the Chatul will tell you we want you to throw it out, but according to, because you have oil of blood, you're going to pour on top. But according to and they don't believe in Royan concept that we imagine the blood of the oil on top is water. But now that you did it already, you have nothing to lose to do the bottom. Why? If it's Chata's blood, that's the shiraim of the Chata's on the top. And because you had more blood on it, so you definitely did chatzah top. And if it's oil blood, fantastic. So you're doing some oil. So Kohen is all good because yesh bila. Anyway, right? Now what's that to do with our Gemara here? We go back to our Mishnah. Toshma, we learned. It says. We'll come back to Mishnah soon. If let's say a carbon that you have to do only one maton like a b'choy, like a mix of the mice that you have to do one maton. Is it not maton? No problem. Just spray one is good enough. We have a problem. The amrit ain't bila. If you, how do you know which animal is for? Which carbon is for? One is a mice and one's a b'choy. How do you know which one is? So they both have the same kind of matana. If you hold yesh bila, no problem, because every drop of blood has both carbonas in it. Is a the you seem to say spray. The way I understand it, you spray only once, and in that once you kill both animals. Yeah, but if you hold ain't bila, how you know the other animals included? Where's the zikr for the other animal? The Gemara, you misunderstood what matanachas means. It means kigoyin is arbu achas ba'achas. You know what it means? It means you have two cups. Not that both the blood of both animals got mixed up inside one cup. Then you have a problem. If you hold ein bila, then you can't just do one. So there were two cups, and we're telling you is go ahead. I mean, there's no chiddush here, but we're telling you spray each cup because one cup is one carbon, one cup is another carbon, and you have it. And but not else you do one matana for each carbon. So the Gemara, and the reason why we even mention halach is leading into the case where 1 and 4 get mixed up together, as we'll see. So the Gemara, matan arba, hachinami, shenis arba, same thing. 4 cups and 4 cups. So therefore, we're telling you spray. Well, by the way, when we say over here matan arba, we learned before it's talking about shtayin shehin arba. The only one that you do 4 corners is the carbon chatas. But here they're all below the line. Otherwise, you have a bigger problem. You know, which blood goes above the line and below the line. So this is all below the line. So when we say arba, we mean 2 that equals 4. Okay. Well, now in this case, matan arba matanachas. You have a carbon that you're a shlamim or an oil that you steinshen arba got mixed up with a carbon chayr that you only do one. Then you only do one. And what's over here? What happens here? The chitemas. Because if you hold ein bila and it seems like you spray one is good enough, but ein bila, how do you know that you had the b'chayr? So as Yeshua said, you spray 4, right? And you're machber, even though it's baltoise, but he imagines the b'chayr beyond the first one is this water. And Abdullah says you only do one as the b'chayr and you do baltigra and you say everything else. Now the chitema hachinam, we're talking about benis arid ba'achas. So there's 1 cup of b'chayr because b'chayr only has 1, and then there's 4 or 2 for the other one. If so, Yeshua said, "Hey, we got a problem. How do you over baltoise?" Right now, where does baltoise come? You only have 1 cup for the b'chayr. We just know which is that 1 cup. So for the b'chayr, as far as the b'chayr is concerned, you only did it once in one place. So what's this baltoise? If you learn yesh bila and they're all mixed together, this b'chayr blood mixed together with the other blood, and you keep on spraying, shtein shein arba, a problem baltoise, because in that blood there's also b'chayr blood, and you're doing too much. But if you learn that ain't bila, and therefore the only way to understand it is there was only 1 cup for the b'chayr and 4 or 2 cups for the oilish lemon, and they all got mixed up. You don't know what's what. So what's this baltoise here? All you have is 1 cup for the b'chayr. Elamar Rabbi says, changing this, they're not arguing here at all in the case of mixed up. All these answers that you gave that before is nothing to do with a bowl. We're talking about cases. All these mishnahs before, we're talking about cases. And since the Gemara goes into understanding
instead of another.
Yes, we're gonna make some cases. So it was never a question of yesh bilo, ain bilo. There's no bilo or ain bilo. They're not arguing about bilo. That be your assumption was that everything talking about they got mixed up in 1 cup. But what do you do with the blood? So you had to come up with ain bilo according to Rabbi Lezer, and so on. And we had a kasha Ravashi, you Ravashi ain bilo. Here we see all these things there. That the reason why you yesh bilo, and you come up with all these answers, extra blood. You're all wrong. All of these cases here are talking about that only cups got mixed up. Don't do a bila because there's no argument about bila. And we'll start from Elah Marava because he gets a new shot and all these questions that we continue on with Rava. We'll continue tomorrow with Shem.